There's a test almost nobody notices. It lasts 3 seconds. No shouting, no threats, no violence. And yet it decides whether you'll be manipulated by that person for the rest of your relationship with them or not. You've already been through this test, probably more than once. At work, at home, with a friend, with someone in your family you love, but who sometimes leaves you with a strange feeling after a conversation. A feeling of, why did I just agree to that? Here's what nobody has told you until today. Manipulators don't pick victims at random. They test. And if you pass the test, they simply give up and move on to someone else. The problem is that this test is so subtle, so well disguised as kindness, urgency, or affection, that 90% of people never learn to recognize it. They spend their whole lives being chosen without ever understanding why. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to show you exactly what that test is, plus 4 more behaviors that together make someone nearly impossible to manipulate. Not because that person distrusts everyone. Quite the opposite, because they learned something that changes everything. Before I tell you what that first test is, I need to tell you a story. There's a certain type of person who, after discovering they've been manipulated once, decides to armor up. They turn into a private investigator of their own life, rereading messages, rereading conversations, looking for hidden intentions behind every compliment, every request, every silence. And you know what happens to that person 6 months later? They're more exhausted, more isolated, and, pay attention to this, easier to manipulate than before. Because constant suspicion isn't protection. It's exhaustion disguised as protection. And exhausted people react worse, not better. There's science behind this. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize studying how the human brain makes decisions, describes 2 systems of thinking inside you. He calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional. It's the autopilot. System 2 is slow, deliberate, rational. It's you actually thinking. Manipulation never talks to System 2. It's designed, often without the manipulator even realizing how precisely they're doing it, to work exclusively on System 1, on autopilot. And that's exactly why being suspicious of everything doesn't work. Suspicion is still an automatic reaction. Instead of fear or guilt, it's anxiety. System 1 is still running the show. What actually protects you isn't distrust. It's regaining through practice access to System 2 at the exact moment someone tries to pull you into autopilot. The Stoics understood this nearly 2,000 years before the word psychology even existed. Epictetus, who was a slave in Rome before becoming one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote a line that sums up everything in this video. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Notice the weight of that. Manipulation, by itself, has no power. 0. All the power lives in your reaction to it. And if you learn to control that reaction, not through coldness, but through practice, manipulation simply finds nothing to hold on to. It falls into empty space, like a punch nobody caught, but that never landed either. There's a gap between what happens to you and what you do about it. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps and later wrote one of the most widely read books on finding meaning in suffering, called that gap the last human freedom. He watched people lose absolutely everything, family, possessions, external dignity, and still retain, inside themselves, the power to choose how they responded to what was happening to them. If that space survives inside a concentration camp, it definitely survives inside a text message conversation with your boss. The 5 behaviors I'm about to teach you do exactly one thing. They give that space back to you. Each one in a different way. And it's inside that space, and only there, that manipulation loses all its force. Let's start with the first one. There's one word that shows up, disguised, in almost every manipulation attempt you'll ever encounter. That word is now. Picture this scene. You're in the middle of your day, working, and a message comes in. Hey, I really need to borrow some money urgently, just until tomorrow. Can you help me out right now? Look at that sentence again. It's not just asking for a loan, it's asking for an immediate answer about a loan. And that's exactly where the trick lives, because while you're under time pressure, your brain doesn't evaluate, it just reacts. System 1 is fully in charge. Whoever's manipulating you doesn't need your thought-out answer. They need your hot one. And this isn't just about money. A boss calls you on a Friday at 5 p.m. I need you to take on this project, but I need an answer right now because I have to close this out today. A partner decides to bring up the future of the relationship in the middle of a fight, when both people are running on pure emotion. A salesperson tells you the deal ends in 10 minutes. Notice, in every one of these cases, there's the same hidden ingredient: artificial urgency. Pay attention to this because it matters. Real urgency does exist. A fire is genuinely urgent. A medical emergency is genuinely urgent. The problem is never urgency itself. It's manufactured urgency, created on purpose, specifically to keep you from thinking. And the antidote is almost embarrassingly simple to say. Though it takes practice to make it feel natural, you learn to say, "Let me think about it, I'll get back to you tomorrow." No justification, no explaining yourself, no apologizing for needing a day. I'll tell you something that happened to me early on in this channel. A supposed business partner called insisting I needed to sign a contract that same afternoon, because, according to him, the opportunity would disappear. And I, just starting out, felt that old, familiar fear of missing out on something good. I held back the urge to answer in the heat of the moment and said, "Let me read through this calmly. I'll give you an answer tomorrow." You know what happened? The person disappeared, just stopped responding, because their urgency was never about the opportunity. It was about not giving me time to think clearly. Remember this line, because it'll apply to countless situations in your life. Artificial urgency is a red flag. A good decision is still good tomorrow. If it's only good today, right now in a rush, be suspicious. And here's a detail almost nobody notices. The 24-hour pause doesn't just protect you from others. It protects you from yourself. That sudden burst of anger that makes you send a message you regret 30 minutes later. That impulse to cancel something, quit something, end something in the heat of emotion. Same mechanism. And sometimes, the worst manipulator you'll ever face in life is your own impulsive self. No important decision is ever born under time pressure. That's the rule. And it's the first tool you're carrying with you from today on. The second behavior takes a bit more practice, but it's, without exaggeration, the most transformative of the 5. Someone tells you, "You're so selfish." Pay attention to what actually happened there, stripped of any emotion. A person said a sentence. That's the fact. That's it. Nothing else happened in the physical world beyond that. What usually happens in your head, though, is something completely different. You jump straight from the fact, "She said that sentence," to the conclusion, "I'm selfish," without passing through any analysis in between. You accept the other person's interpretation as if it were an objective truth about who you are. And that's exactly the leap a manipulator needs you to make. They don't need to prove anything at all. They just need you to accept their version of the facts without questioning it. Back to Epictetus for a moment. A sentence someone says is just sound coming out of a mouth. It only gains weight in your life if you decide to give it that weight. So, in practice, the training is this. Every time someone says something that stirs you up inside, you ask yourself, is this a fact, or is this someone's interpretation? Your boss says, "You don't put in enough effort at work." Fact. He said that sentence. His interpretation, that you don't put in enough effort. Now the question that changes everything. Based on what? Does he have concrete examples, missed deadlines, actual data? Or is it just a loose comment, thrown out to put you on the defensive, willing to work late just to prove you're not what he said you are? Manipulators love vague sentences for exactly this reason. You always do this. You never think about me. Everyone thinks that about you. None of those sentences carry a concrete fact inside them. They're generalizations dressed up as absolute truth. And your job, from today on, is to recognize that disguise. When you hear always or never inside an accusation, that's already a sign you're hearing an opinion, not proof. Here's a line worth holding on to. Someone's opinion of you doesn't define who you are. Only what you repeatedly do, in real life, over time in front of witnesses, defines who you are. And here's the most freeing part of all. You can disagree with an interpretation without fighting, without explaining yourself, without defending yourself like you're on trial. One simple sentence handles it. I understand that's how you see it, but I don't agree. Period. No drama. No need to convince anyone of anything. Because the moment you understand that something is just one person's point of view, not a universal truth about you, the emotional weight simply evaporates. Instead of leaving an argument replaying every word in your head all night, you learn to filter things in real time. This is fact, this is opinion. And opinion isn't a verdict. This behavior alone strips away a huge amount of power from anyone who manipulates through guilt. Because the entire foundation of manipulative guilt is getting you to accept their version of the facts as if it were the only possible version that exists. There's a sentence that shows up disguised as an innocent request, as affection, even as vulnerability. But that is, in practice, pure emotional blackmail. If you don't do this, I'm going to be upset. And I need to be very honest with you here, because I don't want you leaving this video thinking every emotion someone expresses is manipulation. It isn't. People feel things for real. It's completely normal for someone to feel sad when you can't be there for an important moment. The problem is never the emotion itself. The problem is when that emotion becomes a repeated tool, used strategically to get you to give in. There's a huge difference between, I'd be happy if you came to the party, and if you don't come, I'll know you'd rather do anything than be with me. The first sentence talks about the person's feeling. The second turns their feeling into a problem. And the only way to solve that problem is for you to do what they want. Psychologist Susan Forward, who spent much of her career studying this pattern, gave it an exact name: emotional blackmail. And the mechanism repeats itself almost identically across millions of relationships around the world. The other person's feeling subtly becomes your responsibility to fix. How do you tell the difference between a genuine feeling and blackmail? Pay attention to two signals. First, urgency, just like in the first behavior. Second, disproportion. The emotional reaction is way too big for the actual size of what happened. You disagreed with an opinion, and the person treats it like personal betrayal. You couldn't make it to a party, and the person treats it like abandonment. The behavior that protects you here is simple to describe, though it takes courage to practice. You acknowledge the other person's feeling without taking responsibility for fixing it yourself. A sentence that works in that exact moment. I understand you're upset about this, and I'm sorry you feel that way. But my decision stays the same. Notice you're not being cold. You're validating a real feeling. You're just refusing to merge that feeling with your decision. They're two different things. And emotional blackmail only works when you agree to merge them into one. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and author of Meditations, A personal journal never meant to be published, which makes every line feel even more honest, wrote something very similar. You have power over your mind, not over outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The strength he's describing is exactly this. You don't control the other person's feelings. You never will. But you completely control your reaction to those feelings. And it's right there, in that control, that emotional blackmail loses all the power it depended on you giving it. The fourth behavior is the most practical of all five. It's the one you can apply today, in the very next uncomfortable conversation that comes your way. Manipulation loves ambiguity. It hides very well inside poorly worded sentences, requests that seem innocent, but carry a heavy expectation underneath. It would be nice if someone could stay a little later today. Notice, nobody was directly asked there. No name attached. No, can you do this? It's a sentence thrown out into the air, hoping someone, usually you, will feel obligated to volunteer. The behavior that breaks this pattern is short, direct, and extremely effective. You ask the person to state their request clearly. Are you asking me to stay later today? Notice how that single question completely changes the dynamic of the conversation. Now the person has to openly own their request. They have to say clearly what they want. And that alone eliminates a huge chunk of potential manipulation, because manipulation depends on ambiguity to survive. It doesn't hold up well against clarity. This works exactly the same way in texts and messages. Someone sends you a passive-aggressive comment, the kind that keeps nagging at you all afternoon. Instead of trying to decode what they meant, you simply reply, "I didn't quite understand what you meant, can you explain?" That forces whoever wrote it to take a clear position. And, most of the time, manipulators avoid taking a clear position, because ambiguity is exactly the territory where their manipulation can operate. This behavior pulls you completely out of the role of mind reader for other people's lives. You stop spending energy decoding subtext, analyzing tone, overanalyzing ellipses. You just ask for clarity. And if the person can't be clear, that alone tells you a lot about the real intention hidden behind that request. And now it's time for me to show you that first test I promised you at the beginning of this video. Pay very close attention, because once you see this pattern, you can't stop seeing it. The compliment always comes before the request. You're honestly the only person here who gets things done right. By the way, could you do me a small favor? You're so smart. You always explain things so well. Would you mind helping me with something? I trust you so much. You're the most responsible person I know. Could you take this on for me? Notice the exact structure. First comes a positive statement about you. Right after, almost glued on, with no room to breathe, comes the request. I need to be fair here. This doesn't mean every compliment followed by a request is manipulation. Sometimes it's just politeness. Sometimes it's just a gentle way of asking for something. The difference lies in the intention and the repeated pattern. What turns this into manipulation is when the compliment exists solely to soften you up before the real ask, and especially when it comes with an implied obligation, something like, "I figured someone as responsible as you would be up for this." Notice the trap there. If you say no, you automatically become irresponsible in that person's eyes. The compliment became a cage. Accepting the positive label started to mean accepting the request too. That's the first test. It's fast, subtle, easy to disguise as genuine friendliness. And most people's automatic reaction to being complimented is to completely lower their guard. Nobody suspects someone being kind to them. And that's exactly why this is the favorite entry point for manipulators: low resistance, high effectiveness. Robert Cialdini, who spent years scientifically studying the triggers of influence, found something similar in his research. Likability is one of the most powerful mental shortcuts we have. When someone shows they like us or compliments us, part of the brain almost automatically relaxes its critical guard. That's not a character flaw, it's human biology. The problem isn't having that mechanism, it's not knowing it exists. The behavior that protects you here is consciously separating the compliment from the request. When you notice that structure, compliment followed by request, practice taking the mental pause from the first behavior and asking yourself, would I agree to this request, even without the compliment that came before it? If the answer is yes, great. Go ahead and accept it. It's probably just a genuine request. If the answer is probably not, but now I feel kind of obligated, that obligated is the alarm. The compliment did exactly what it was designed to do, emotionally trap you before you could evaluate the request with a clear head. Here's a line that sums up this entire behavior. Not every compliment is affection. Some are handcuffs. And here's something interesting. Put this fifth behavior together with the second one I taught you, separating fact from interpretation. A compliment is a positive interpretation of you, offered strategically. That doesn't mean it's a lie. You might genuinely be responsible, genuinely good at what you do. The compliment itself was never the problem. The problem is using that compliment as currency to buy an automatic yes. Notice something before I wrap up this video. None of these 5 behaviors, on their own, turn you into a cold, suspicious, closed-off person. Quite the opposite. The 24-hour pause gives you back time to think. Separating fact from interpretation gives you back clarity about who you really are, regardless of what others say. Recognizing emotional blackmail gives you back the ability to love people without feeling forced to fix their feelings. Asking for clarity gives you back the peace of not having to decode subtext anymore. And separating compliments from requests gives you back the right to say no without feeling like a bad person for it. All 5 behaviors do exactly the same thing, each in their own way. They give you back that gap between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl called the last human freedom. And it's inside that gap, and only there, that any attempt at manipulation simply loses its power. Whoever controls their own reaction holds the wheel of the conversation. Always. No matter who's sitting in the passenger seat. Let's recap, because I want you to leave this video with this locked in, not just heard, first. No important decision gets made under time pressure. You practice the 24-hour pause. Second, you separate what actually happened from someone's interpretation of what happened. Third, you acknowledge the other person's feelings without taking responsibility for fixing them. Fourth, when a request comes in confusing, you ask the person to state it clearly. Fifth, the first test manipulators tend to run. You separate the compliment from the request and ask yourself whether you'd accept that request even without the compliment coming first. Notice that at no point did I tell you to distrust everyone, to keep analyzing hidden motives all the time, to become emotionally armored. Quite the opposite. These 5 behaviors exist exactly so you can keep trusting people, keep being kind, keep having real relationships. Just now, with a layer of protection you didn't have before. Because, like I said at the start of this video, manipulation only works on autopilot. And now you're carrying 5 concrete tools to step out of autopilot whenever you need to. If this video made sense to you, save it now. Because at some point this week, you're going to want to come back to one of these 5 behaviors. And drop a comment below on which one you've lived through, which one you recognized first in your own life. I read every comment, and that exchange with you is what makes this channel worth doing. Big hug. See you in the next video.